Hi, and welcome to another narrative presented by yours truly, Cryptids Roost. If you enjoy this and other stories, please be so kind as to hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe. This will help with the YouTube's algorithm and will promote the channel more. Now, even though I am not yet monetized by YouTube, I have created some awesome merch for you guys. So please be so kind as to visit redbubble.com/people/cryptids-roost and grab yourself a t-shirt, mug, wall clock, or even a shower curtain, or whatever else grabs your fancy. The link, as always, is in the description. Oh, and thank you all for helping us to reach that first milestone of 100 subscribers. Next milestone will be 500, so I'm sure we can do it. Oh, and don't forget to leave a comment. Maybe tell us how you would handle the upcoming situations. So, grab your coffee, sit back and enjoy the show. The Mysterious Life of a Cryptid Hunter, Part 3, the finale. This brilliant series has been written by Reddit user ThickFrog15. Hey, I'm Emily. I'm 5'11", weigh 130 pounds and have blue eyes. My husband Tom is 6'3", 200 pounds and with light brown eyes. We hunt monsters. I am a failed attempt to make a super soldier. I was forced to undergo things no kid should ever experience. But unlike my fellow test subjects, I had feelings. I hated my captors. I dreamed of slitting their throats in front of their families. I dreamed I would kill all of them. I dreamed I would escape. There was a light in the darkness though, pale. He was only 6 foot in height when I met him. He helped me learn to read, write, and taught me martial arts. He taught me to wield anything as a weapon, taught me how to nimbly dodge attacks and how to kill. During one training session, he demonstrated how to slit the throat of a person, on himself. He let me slice in the wound. I recall every time the training would end, he would have cuts, bruises and deep gashes as well as broken limbs. But he recovered from it all. You guys may be wondering how I escaped. Well, it's a lot less exciting than you think. Pale used his long arms to lift me up into a vent. I crawled through the vent. I heard Pale's footsteps as he murdered each guard. I encountered one guard though. He tried to bash me with the butt of his gun, but I caught it and crushed it like it was paper. He tried to run, but I jumped on his back and snapped his neck. After that, Pale and I met up and killed everyone else in the facility. So, cut to now. I'm a 32-year-old hunter stalking a Mothman with Josh in Point Pleasant. We were skulking through the woods by a river that smelled as if someone mixed puke and their own shit together with a healthy dose of Axe body spray. I was gripping my revolver and tactical knife like they were the last two things I owned, as this was going to be a hard encounter. Luckily, Josh was by my side, holding his signature Molotov cocktails scarily close to a lighter. I've never felt this stressed out since the Wendigo incident, or when Tom showed me I'm on the FBI's top 5 most wanted list. But we got what we were for, in the form of a Mothman barreling towards my face. I was knocked down. It hopped onto me and started tearing into my sides with its razor blade like talons. I saw Josh draw his gun as the Mothman flapped his wing, knocking said gun out of Josh's hands. "Shit, I'ma punch it," cried Josh. "Don't do that," I said. "I'ma do it," he replied. Josh tried to punch it, but he ended up breaking his hand. Mr. Mothy got a hard head," he whimpered. "The damn thing's still on me," I shouted. I stabbed my knife into the gut of the Mothman. It shrieked and jumped away. Josh grabbed his gun with his non-broken hand and shot the Mothman to near shreds, but it was still alive. It flew towards us, only to be tackled by a weird white figure. It tore the Mothman to shreds. The figure stood tall, thin, pale. It was none other than codename Pale. "Okay, that was quick," Pale grunted. He was examining the cryptid's head. "Pale?" Josh said. "Yes, I'm Pale," he replied. "I thought I killed you," said Josh. Pale replied, "Thought? I didn't need that damn sass," said Josh. "I've almost died twice in a damn row. You'll be passive-aggressive as hell by the first time," responded Pale. "You and Pale know each other?" I said. So-so," replied Josh. I winced as I felt my torso. Josh was still trying to see if he could find a way to give his mangled hand a tad bit of support by trying and failing at wrapping his hand with bandages. "Josh, need help with that?" asked Pale. Pale walked over to help Josh. I saw his feet. They had leather slippers on them. Pale was living on his own. I was too busy looking at his shoes to realise he was looking at me. "Like my shoes?" said Pale. Sure. It's nice to see you at least wear shoes," I responded. Pale finished wrapping up Josh's hand and stood up. His eyes widened. I looked around. He stared at a figure walking on the bridge by the river. "We need to move," said Pale. "Why?" I responded. "I'll explain later. Where's your car?" "Why?" "Stop asking why and let's get moving," said Pale. Pale lifted me up and we booked it to the car. "Are you joking? You don't seem like a joking type," I said. "I don't seem like a lot of things because I'm a 10-foot tall Pale with leather slippers on. But no, I'm not joking." Pale picked me and Josh up and held us on his shoulders and started running even faster. He bounded over a stray cat, which promptly hissed at him. He kept running. He must have been moving at 40 miles an hour. He got to Josh's car, popped him in the back seat and I in the driver's side, and bashed his head getting into the passenger side. "Drive," said Pale. "Where?" I replied. "Yes," said Pale. I floored it and tore out of there to the nearest cryptid hunting facility. "God damn it, I just put new wheels on it," exclaimed Josh. "Wheels are the least of your problems," said Pale. "You were talking to a monster hunter," said Josh. "You're talking to a failed super soldier attempt who taught the driver of this car to snap the neck of a person twice her size," responded Pale. I always knew Pale was a failed attempt of some sort, but I didn't know he was a super soldier. I hit a bump and Pale's head bashed against the top of the car. As we pulled in, Tom was waiting there in full gear. When he saw me, he ran towards me and gave me a big, nearly rib-crushing hug. "Oh, thank God you're alive!" exclaimed Tom. "What happened?" I said. Turns out there was a never-before-seen cryptid real close to the area me and Josh were hunting in. It had killed an entire gang of monster hunters. The one survivor was threatened with his life. Bad ethics. To spill the beans. It was black in colour, 12 feet tall, faster than anything they've ever seen. Pale stepped out of the car to stretch and looked at all the guns pointed at him. "Sup?" he said. "Pale?" said Tom. "Hi, Tom. That shotgun sure looks familiar. So you drove in a car with that thing?" said Tom. "Huh?" I replied. "Am I asleep?" said Tom. "Nope," I replied. We were all sat in a room, Pale, me and Josh, in that order. They've asked us what we saw. I told him I saw nothing. Josh said the same, but he was examining the cast on his hand, so he didn't really pay much attention. When they got to Pale, he said, "I didn't see it correctly, but I think I know who it is." "Excuse me? Who?" said the interviewer. "He was my old cellmate. I lost touch when I got Emily out of the facility." "Oh, so she is the person we're looking for," said the interviewer. Pale shot up, grabbing the interviewer by the neck, and held him up. "Ha ha, if you please, we asked Pale. Yeah, I work for the FB," said the interviewer. Pale tightened his grip on the interviewer's neck. His eyes turned a deep blood red. "What was that? I didn't hear you over the gurgling," said Pale. "Please, stop, I've got a wife and kids," said the interviewer. "Yeah, not gonna cut it. I've heard that way too many times," said Pale. "Help! Someone!" said the interviewer. The guards pointed their guns at Pale. Pale responded with an annoyed look. "I can crush with a force of 16,000 psi. I've never needed to crush someone with my bare hands, but I'll try it," said Pale. "Fine, I won't tell. Just let me go," squawked the interviewer. Pale dropped the interviewer onto his chair and sat down. The interviewer guy took some time before he could talk again. "Ah, yes. Good old code name, Dark. He taught me everything. I taught Emily. He was a dick, though. He stood 2 feet taller than I did. So, 8 feet at the time? Damn, that was 28 years ago. All I remember is that he had one hell of an attitude," said Pale. So there's more of you?" said Josh. "I wouldn't call him another of me, per se. I'm more of a copy of him," corrected Pale. Pale then explained how Dark and him could be a tag team. Pale mentally destroys the target by making them think they hear voices, and Dark destroys them physically. So that puts me in a weird place. I was confused. "Okay, we will put you in a cell," said the interviewer. "Cool, but remember, if you try to get her," points at me, "I'll know," said Pale. "My boss told me to take it easy for a while. As you know, scars." I was sitting in a chair wearing my pyjamas, watching the news. "Breaking news. Nearly 40 dead found scattered throughout the Point Pleasant area. Autopsy showed deep gash wounds on the corpse's neck and chest, while authorities are searching for any signs of a weapon or item that could have caused such damage. People are blaming it on the legendary Mothman." "Funny, because they don't even know what it is," said Tom, slouching into his chair, soda in hand. We had just moved into a home in the most western part of New Jersey. I was looking at a raggedy teddy bear on a nearby shelf. This teddy bear is the only reminder of my days at the Super Soldier testing grounds. Pale stitched it together. He was good at knitting. I love that damn bear. I keep it as a good luck charm during missions. I slept with it on the cold nights when I was alone in the wilderness. It was ripped up, but I loved it no less. I walked over to the bear and picked it up. I just held the bear. Then something clicked in my head. It had a white button and a black button for eyes, and in the centre of its chest a red heart. Pale is white, Dark is black in colour. "It means you're a mix of us both, Emily." I spun around. Tom was out of his seat, nearly reaching for his revolver, when a dark hooded figure emerged from the shadows. It grew and grew and grew again. Eventually he was 12 feet in height. He grew thinner and tore off his hood and jeans, revealing a dark figure that looked like Pale but black and with harsh yellow eye, codenamed Dark. Tom grabbed the revolver. He fired 4 shots. Dark dodged them all and leapt onto the ceiling. He started rapidly climbing towards Tom. I shouted, "Hey!" Dark bent his back backwards and started crawling towards me. Tom took the chance and shot Dark where his crotch should be. He bent back to a normal stance, still on the ceiling. He basically reached across the room and almost grabbed Tom. He dashed away. I grabbed a kitchen knife and rushed Dark. He threw a chair at me. I slid under the chair. I stabbed him in the shoulder, twisting the knife almost all the way round. It jumped down and tried to punch me. I blocked and took his feet from under him with a sweep kick. I rose my leg up for an axe kick, but but he spider crawled away. He jumped on Tom, who punched him repeatedly in the eye. Dark was about to slash Tom's throat, but Tom grabbed the most unassuming weapon, a can of bug spray, and unloaded half the can into Dark's eye. Dark shrieked loudly. Tom thrust-kicked him away and went for his revolver. Dark was still shrieking when he saw the half-empty can of spray and a lighter. He turned the lighter on and held the can behind it. "I'll burn this place to the ground," shouted Dark. "If they aren't 12-foot high flames, it ain't cool." "Pale, how are you here?" said Tom. "I'm everywhere," said Pale. Tom replied, "Like death." "No, do not remind me of that," shouted Pale. Dark cracked his knuckles. He was bigger and more muscular than Pale. But Pale had one thing. He could break Dark. Mentally, that is. Pale stated, "I'm about to make the idiom brains over brawn a real thing." "Screw off, you shit stain," said Dark. "Bro, you're black in colour, like pitch black. You're a tar stain," said Pale. Dark changed. Pale leapt out of the way. Dark performed a one-armed cartwheel to correct himself. Pale took this opportunity to club Dark in the head. Dark retaliated with a powerful uppercut to Pale. They started wailing on each other. Every time got the upper hand, Pale would find a way to outsmart him. After a while, Dark grabbed Pale by the waist and smashed both of them through a window. Dark was on top of Pale, beating his face in. Pale punched Dark in the stomach. I needed to do something. I sprinted outside and jumped into the air. I nailed Dark in the face. He grabbed my leg and threw me into a wall. I crashed into the wall. Tom got to me just as my lights went out, then black. I woke up. My eyes took a while to adjust to the outside. Tom was shaking me, telling me to wake up. I jumped awake. I looked around the area. Pale was gone, and so was Dark. Cut to a few weeks later. Tom had boarded up the windows, and I had mostly recovered from the fight with Dark. Me, Tom, Josh, and a new hunter, Jerry, were in the Great Lakes area looking for a werewolf. Now, werewolves aren't like their movie counterparts. They regain all of their abilities of their human form, just as a wolf. They were also at least 7 feet tall, regardless of the age of the person. We were in a forest, waiting to be met up with another group of hunters. I was ahead of everyone when I heard a noise on my walkie-talkie used to communicate with the other hunters. "Help! Help us!" cried the voice. "Who is this?" I replied. "This is," said the voice, and then disconnected. The walkie-talkie was silent. I froze and turned to Tom. "You know the other group?" I asked. Yes," said Tom. "I think they're all dead now," I said. Tom and the rest froze. We were in the most secluded part of the forest. Like, I'm talking little to no light pollution, Dark. The only thing illuminating our way was our flashlights. Then we heard a low, menacing growl. I drew my barbed whip and pistol. Tom prepared his shotgun and trench knife. Josh drew his Molotovs and a lighter, and Jerry loaded his rifle. We were all back to back, Avengers style. The werewolf jumped out of the bush and almost got Tom. Tom, being the semi-clumsy person that he is, stumbled out of the way. The wolf landed in our circle, but I snagged it with my whip. It grabbed the whip, completely ignoring the barbs, and was about to pull me towards it, but I shape-shifted. See, when you shape-shift, you gain all the physical attributes of the thing you shape-shift into. So I morphed into a 7-foot-tall yeti and smashed the wolf into a bunch of trees. One downside to shape-shifting is if you morph into something too big, your clothes rip. So I've learned to wear semi-loose fitting clothes. I morphed back to normal and told Jerry to shoot. He fired 2 shots into the wolf, but it barely noticed them. I fired my pistol, but the bullets didn't hurt it. That werewolf does not want to die, exclaimed Josh. He threw one of his Molotovs and it lit the werewolf on fire, but the werewolf couldn't care less. Well done, jackass, said Tom. I tried another creature to morph into, a Mothman. I did so and held the barb with my talons after removing my shoes. I whipped it around the werewolf's neck and pulled up. I flapped my wings, lifting the burning, choking, struggling werewolf off the ground. I heard in the manual that if a werewolf is unable to breathe for a long enough period of time, it will turn human. Its screams started turning more human. I saw a nearby pond and dipped the guy into it to put out the flames. I undid the barb and morphed back into human. The man choked and coughed and had burns, but he was alive. As he was being loaded into an ambulance, I hobbled over to Tom, morphed back to normal and asked him a question. So, when's the court date? None. Turns out this guy is a registered sex offender, has multiple DUIs, has been in jail for almost every charge you can get, and on top of that, burnt down a nursing home. We actually got paid to bring this guy to justice, said Tom. Yay! Finally my student loan debt can be paid, exclaimed Josh. What about the others? Said Jerry. We all froze. What about the other hunters? Did they die, or did they meet a fate worse than death? I watched as the guy was taken away. Tom shifted his weight from one side to the other. Josh checked his hand brace. Jerry stood there, wide-eyed. Can we speak in private, Mrs. Emily? Said Jerry. Okay, I said. He and I walked down to the lake area where I gave the wolf an extreme version of the ice bucket challenge. I wandered down to the shore of the lake when I heard a noise I'm all too familiar with, a knife being unsheathed. I spun around to see Jerry lunging at me. I grabbed his arm, but he got me into some kind of hold. We went to the ground. I tried wresting the knife from him, but to no avail. I stared directly into his eyes, realizing that this might be the day I die, when his eyes changed. They changed into more sorrowful, saddened, pained eyes. He started crying. I grabbed his knife and chucked it as far into the lake as I could, albeit I probably threw it across the lake, but I wasn't about to check. I helped Jerry up and walked him to our shared car. After we flew home, got everything sorted out and made sure that we weren't being followed, me and Tom were relaxing in our bed. Tom had Smudge, our lovely white cat, hates veggies though, on his hip, as he was lying sideways on his side. I was quietly reading a book. Our windows were open, but the night air was welcoming. That is, until I heard a noise. Emily! Emily! Emmy! Oh, screw it! Wake up! I was on the alert at this point. I quietly walked downstairs into the kitchen, grabbing the same kitchen knife I used on Dark. I got to the back door. I slid the door and screen door open and snuck outside. Pale was sitting on a hammock outside. He was swinging it as far as it will go without flipping over. He eventually swung too hard and fell flat on his face. He rose up, his pale white body being illuminated by the moonlight. He had an agitated look on his face, or his eye. Sorry for the rude awakening. It's in fact quite urgent, stated Pale. It's 12 o'clock at night. Yeah. Turns out trains won't let a Pale, mostly naked, minus a loincloth and a pair of slippers, on a train. But I was sneaking through the monster facility thing, and I stumbled across some info about the Super Soldier Project. He handed me a document. Project Night Terrors. We have been testing 2 genetic materials that can possibly create a new super soldier. It will be tested on 2 subjects. Codename Pale. Codename Pale is a 6 foot, 150 pound male at the age of 17. He has been given the serum in controlled doses. Mostly, the serum has been sent directly to his brain in order to increase his redacted capability. He has gained 1 foot from 5 foot to 6, no weight, and little to no increase or decrease in metabolism. However, he does display incredible redacted strength, able to speak with redacted, and has lost all facial features minus a big singular eye. He has learned sign language and is able to break out of his cell on the regular. Codename Dark. Codename Dark is an 8 foot, 230 pound male at the age of 19. He has been given the serum in controlled doses straight into his muscles in order to increase his redacted capabilities. He has undergone similar effects to codename Pale, but his skin has turned a dark black colour instead of pale. He has displayed super redacted and displays every physical capability 2 times better than Pale. He displays more hostility than his Pale counterpart, but he is able to speak even without a mouth. Subject 513-81225. Subject 513-81225 is a 6-year-old, 4'1", 70 pound female of Japanese heritage. She has been given the serum in controlled doses straight to her muscles and brain. She has displayed incredible redacted strength as well as redacted. She is able to multiply 7-digit numbers in the span of 0.2 seconds. She has outsmarted the guards many times, killed 7 and can hold her own against the other 2 subjects. She fights codename Pale most often, which contradicts Pale's quiet nature. Interestingly, she has no altered physical state. She is as normal as ever. Signed, Data expunged. Everything clicked. I was a mix of the 2. That explains Jerry's reaction to my gaze. I was also super strong for that reason. I gave the paper back to Pale. Thanks, that explains a lot, I exclaimed. Even though so much info is redacted, I have a damn good idea of who it is, said Pale. Who? I said. Pale's feet shuffled. He seemed nervous about saying. Oh, you don't need to know. I was him the entire time, said Dark. Pale and I looked up. Dark was perched on the roof, his body blocking the moonlight. But that's impossible. You were in a max security prison, stated Pale. I didn't need to. If you guys didn't know, Project Night Terrors is not only not abandoned, but ongoing, stated Dark. There were more kids going through what I went through. I morphed into a grizzly bear and leapt up onto the roof. I rushed Dark. He prepared to slash. I ducked and battered him in the face. He grabbed my arms. We went down, pummeling each other all the way to the ground. He threw me off him and I landed on my feet and rose up. Bears fight each other like wild boxers. I threw a jab at him. He blocked the attack and I nailed his side with my claws. I slashed all the way down his side. Dark punched my face and I fell over. Pale rushed Dark, smashing him in the face. Dark grabbed Pale's arm and tore it off. He then dug his claw into his side and slashed all the way down Pale's side. Pale shrieked, but he pulled through the pain. He took his claws and mashed them into Dark's eye. Dark blood gushed out and onto Pale's hand. Dark screamed like there was no tomorrow. Dark, you better bring a damn water bowl, 'cause I'ma send you to hell, exclaimed Pale. Pale grabbed the head of Dark. His hand throbbed as a burst of power surged through them, causing his hands to tighten into one powerful crushing move. Dark's head crushed like an overripe tomato. Pale tossed Dark's mangled skull onto the ground. He wiped his hand off. I wandered up to Dark. I gave his imploded head a little kick. The mangled head tilted lifelessly. I turned around to face Pale. "What do we do now?" I asked. Pale gave me a sad look. He waved at me. He wandered into the forest and disappeared into the darkness, his pale body merging with the blackness. I wandered into the house and sat down on the bed. Tom and Smudge were fast asleep. This was roughly 4 years ago. Me and Tom are still together. I'm happy with my life. Although it has been hard, I made it. This is Emily. Out. Wow, that was an awesome episode. Now if you enjoyed listening to this installment, be sure to pop over to the author's Reddit profile, ThickFrog15, and drop them a line, or even give them a glowing review. The link to their Reddit profile will be below in the description. Thank you for listening. Now if you enjoyed my narration, then please feel free to like and share the video. Leave a comment below. Maybe tell us how you would handle these situations. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button and tap that notification bell, then select all. That way you'll receive all notifications each time I upload a new video. Even though I'm not yet monetized by YouTube, I have created some awesome merch for you guys. So please be so kind as to visit redbubble.com/people/cryptids-roost and grab yourself a t-shirt, mug, wall clock, or even a shower curtain. Whatever grabs your fancy. The link is in the description. Now have you had any cryptid sightings, paranormal or supernatural encounters, or even had a creepy or terrifying situation you would like to share? Or have you even written a CreepyPasta story that you would like me to narrate? You could submit all your stories, etc. to cryptidsroost@gmail.com. And if you wish to remain anonymous, that's fine with me. I also have a Facebook group, Twitter, Reddit and Discord. If you would like to support the channel and help make it grow, my PayPal is paypal.me/Cryptids Roost. Again, that will also be below. And thank you. And don't forget, where fear is, happiness is not.